Hey everyone, I'm Rachel Adelicia. This is Investment Piece, and I don't know if you're really online. And truly, by really online, I mean constantly on Twitter and that discourse, which happens, across so many subjects, or on Instagram or on TikTok or wherever you go for your social media, here on YouTube. But if you are really online, or if you aren't really online, you know that this week there's been a lot of discourse about fast fashion versus ethical fashion and slow fashion, and especially in terms of hauls. And if you are not familiar with a haul is when someone, normally on Instagram or TikTok, buys fast fashion, but they buy it in bulk. Like for one shopping trip, instead of getting, maybe one or two items, they get anywhere from 10 to 50 items, and they will unbox and show you what they've gotten. And one of these companies, these fast fashion companies in particular, it came out this week that they put a lot of lead and mercury in their clothes, because their clothes are really cheap. And obviously that's not good for you. And so it's led to this discussion about fast fashion versus slow fashion, or ethical fashion, whatever you want to call it. And hauls versus, how might be a better way for us to shop. And I found the discourse to be very, very interesting. And the fact is that this is a loaded subject. And by loaded, what I mean is that when we talk about anything in fashion, there are always layers to it. I always say that we have to have multiple truths in our pockets, which is a good thing because I love a dress with pockets. But, some of the truths that we have to have, like, for example, with knockoffs, is that regardless of what we say, people are at different price points and want to spend money on different things. And that's fine, and that's normal, and you should. Not everything needs to be designer. Not everything needs to cost a lot. Fashion should be art, and fashion should be available to everyone, right? There's that. And then there's the emotional component of the fact that no matter what we say, we all want to fit in. Like, we all want to sit at the cool kids table. And so if one item is really popular this season, it's normal to want it in some version, right? And so with the haul discourse, I have opinions. And if you need help finding places or ways to shop more slow or more ethically, I'm glad to help. But what, instead of the questions that I think we should be having about hauls, instead of the one that most people are having is, where should I shop instead? Or what should I do instead? And I think what we're leaving out of that conversation, because there are answers to those questions, and some of them are personal, meaning like, what's your style? What do you need? And some of them are just general, like, hey, this is a really ethical company. This is a way to shop slow. But combined, there's not one answer fits all for any of us for our shopping needs. But when we talk about hauls, and I'm seeing people getting defensive about where they're shopping and how they're shopping, and then some people being like, you should do it this way, I think, much like the knockoff situation, we are forgetting that hauls have an emotional component to them. And really and truly, I truly believe that all fashion does. You know that I think that fashion is a way with which we tell our stories. And part of the reason why sometimes I think we get defensive or we get emotional about our fashion is because it's a part of us. It's how we tell our story. I am telling you this story, and so I'm going to get defensive of it. And the thing about hauls is that regardless of what we say, it feels good to have a lot of options. It feels good to get a lot. We live in a society that rewards you, that thinks you're cool if you get a lot. We live in a society where you are always supposed to have new things. We live in a social media paradigm where, like, many people aren't rewearing. It's new. And I understand that you might be thinking I'm part of that. But I think that it is a part of the haul conversation that we're not talking about, is the emotional component. You might be thinking this is a haul, and in some ways you're right. I had a neighbor very lovingly and so generously, she and her daughter, different sizes, different ages, cleaned out their closets from the 60s, not the 60s, the 70s and 80s. And I have so many great pieces. And they gave me just like so many clothes. So generous, right? And I have to admit, it feels good. It feels good to know, like, I have a whole pile of clothes to go through. I have a whole bunch of choices. And I'm not going to keep it all. It's not all going to fit me. It's not all going to be my style. It's not all going to be for me. So I will sort through it and keep what I want and keep what fits me. and then, give away or sell or whatever it is it needs to do. But I have to acknowledge getting it in bulk did feel a little bit good. So I understand the emotions behind a haul. I understand that it feels good to have a pile, to feel like you're belonging, if you're unboxing on Instagram. Um, I'm bad at unboxes, to be really quite frank with you, mainly because even when I only have like one thing to show you, if I get a box in the mail, it's a present, even if it's from me to me, and I have to open it right away. Um, but I think that that's the conversation that we're not having, is that there's an emotional component to this. And I understand that these conversations, these may not change social media. You and I are having a discussion about hauls right now, and I understand that, that's going to stop people from doing huge hauls and unboxings on Instagram and TikTok. I understand that. But I'm wondering if, instead of asking ourselves, where should I shop instead? Or how else am I supposed to shop? Or if I can only afford this, where can I get all this stuff? If maybe the question that we should be asking is, what feelings do I get from the haul? And how can I also find joy in doing that slowly? Because again, if we're holding all these truths and these fantastic dresses that we have with pockets, I think one of the truths we have to acknowledge is that finding your style takes time. And that's supposed to be a joyous process. It should be joyful to figure out what fits you, your body, and also fits your style, what you like. It's okay if that takes a long time. That does mean that occasionally you're going to get things and decide they're not for you, and pass them along, hopefully in a responsible and ethical manner. But that's a process. Also, our lives go through seasons. And by that, I just mean, not only does our style sometimes change, sometimes our lives change. Maybe you went from working in an office to working at home, and so your wardrobe can change. Or you went from, really doing XYZ, and now you're doing ABC. Our seasons of our lives change. So we buy and accommodate what we need to tell those stories. But that is a process, an ongoing process. And it's okay if it takes time. It's also okay to take your time buying stuff. I got some advice recently, and I think it's some of the best shopping advice as someone who shops. And I'm also a collector, so I have vintage pieces that aren't necessarily for wear, but for collecting and storing and keeping and preserving for the next people. But it was to enjoy the pause. And the advice was to put things in your cart and then take a day and think about them. Because I'm one of the people too, like if we're shopping online tonight and you see something you really want, it's easy to click buy, and then all of a sudden you get something and you may be thinking, oh, I already have a dress like this, or I already have this t-shirt, or whatever it is, that we don't think about it, or we get it and all of a sudden we don't need, a suit if you don't need a suit to wear to work. That practicing the pause. I also think that there's joy in saving up for your big pieces. And this is a conversation I want to have later. I know my blog is called Investment Piece. And yes, look, I love Gucci and Prada and Valentino as much as anyone else. I don't think every investment piece in your closet needs to be designer or big. It can just be the things that really you love and make your life better, from, great yoga pants to a great blazer to so many things. We'll talk about it, I promise. But I think there can be joy in saving up for those things. Even there's been vintage dresses. There's a vintage dress right now I'm saving up to get, and there's joy in saving for it. There's joy in waiting for things. The first pair of Valentino shoes I ever bought, I saved up for 3 years to buy. Seriously, 3 years. And when I got them, when the store person brought them out to me, it was like a 5-year-old on Christmas, because there was so much joy in saving and then getting. But I think we can find the joy in the slow, in the journey. As I'm getting older, I am having a fun time. And by the way, I'm not old, but I'm having a fun time figuring out my style as it evolves. If I've always been classics with an edge, what does that mean as I get older? What does that mean when I don't have to go into an office, but I love suits? What does that mean when I love mini skirts and vintage clothes? How does that all combine? What do I really need day to day? What do I really wear? What do I love that I want to be a part of my wardrobe, so that when I feel my best and I'm at my best, I can reach for it and feel my best in it? What are the stories I really want to tell, and what stories are maybe not mine to tell. I think if we sit in those feelings and we find the joy in it, you can find the joy in the slow fashion. And look, I know we're all going to have a moment where maybe you can buy many things at a time. It does feel good. I think we have to acknowledge it feels good. But also, how can we find the joy in wearing clothes where the people who make them are paid a living wage and we can feel good about the clothes that we're wearing? Where do we find the joy in that? I know this is not an answer to the haul question. I know that. And that the haul question is, again, layered, because there is the component of what are you shopping for? What's your budget? What kind of clothes do you like? So I understand that sometimes the answer of just don't shop at fast fashion and just don't do that seems so general and so not specific to us that it feels like we can't do that. And so maybe the question is, if we answer those things, if we say, what am I shopping for? What fits my life? What's my budget? Maybe more personalized, you can find answers. And of course, if you need help, always reach out to me. I'm going to go through my vintage haul right now. But yeah, I'm also going to sit with those questions. I'm going to sit with those feelings. And also, if you've been following the discourse and you have thoughts on it, I would love to know. In the meantime, this is Rachel Adelicia. This is Investment Piece, and I hope you have a great weekend.